Welcome to the Denise Hill Experience with stories and interviews that educate, inspire, and encourage. Now, here's your host, Denise Hill.
Welcome to another episode of the Denise Hill Experience. Yes, indeed, I'm your girl, Denise Hill. Ooh, what a life I've had being able to interact with so many people with so many stories and so much wisdom. I'm talking about musicians, artists, authors, politicians, celebrities, and everyday people. Some of those are the best stories, to be quite honest. But today, do I have an experience for you? Let me tell you, I could spend an hour just talking to you about all the exchanges and time I've spent in and out, our paths crossing and then dipping away for years and then crossing again. Man, oh man, I met him very first time. I was a young intern in radio. I wasn't even a professional, hadn't got check number one. But I was an intern at the nation's first 24-hour gospel station in Washington, D.C., WYCB. I talk about this whole story with him and more in my book, Pass the Mic, Stories and Lessons of a Life in Radio. So you should check that out. But the first time I met him was at that radio station. It was my first introduction into the world of motivational speaking. He knocked my socks off. Man, oh man. And I just had to hear more and more of what he had to offer. So I grabbed his tapes and I listened to him for years until our paths crossed again. This time I was a professional. He was a co-host with George Wallace of a morning show in Washington, D.C. for our sister station, Magic 102.3. I was still at WICB at that time, getting paid, finally. He used to come over to our studio just to chop it up between mic breaks and listen to some of his favorite gospel music. He talked so lovingly about his mom and how all of it reminded him of her. Then his morning show ended. That meant our paths went separate ways again for years. But wouldn't you know it, our paths crossed again in radio. This time, I was the program director. The one who could get him on the radio in New York City at WLIB. And he was doing a venture where he wanted to come and empower a lot of people. And so we were trying to work something out where he could come on the radio a few times a week. But we settled for just a couple while he was in town for this particular event. And he, again, knocked mine and everybody else's socks off. Needless to say, our paths separated yet again, but crossed one more time as he launched a massive effort to help train tons and tons of people who wanted to be professional speakers and motivators just like him. He was looking for a select few to start it all off. And wouldn't you know it, I was waving my hand in the air and ready to be one of those few. I was a founding member and went on to help train some of his speakers through his Les Brown Institute. What an honor. And I guess I gave away who I'm talking about. The one, the only motivator himself, Les Brown. Man, the more than 20 years worth of encounters I've had with him have been so life-changing, so empowering. I could tell you tons of stories that, well, he'd probably fuss at me if I did tell you. Some of those behind-the-scenes things. We'll just keep those to ourselves. But I do want you to hear this interview that I did with him because he has some powerful insight and he shared some things that he had never shared before. You know, as he's beginning to get up in years, that filter's starting to come down. Let's just be honest. And some of the things that he held on to for whatever reason, reputation, image, it just wasn't the right time to share. He's starting to share some of those things now. And there's so much more wisdom in those too. You have got to hear this interview with the one and only Les Brown. Wow, oh wow, the experiences I've had with him. So honored. And I'm so sure you're going to love this experience as much as I did, if not more. Enjoy, all right? My experience with Les Brown. It's Denise Hill here with Les Brown. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I'm fabulous. Such an honor always to talk and work with you. I so appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your taking the time to talk to me.
I've known you for probably going on 20 years in various radio capacities, and to now be able to be trained and be able to say I am part of the Les Brown Institute and a founding member at that. I'm just so honored. I'm so honored.
Thank you so much. And I want you to call me more often because what I want to do, it took me 3 years to earn my first million in this industry. That was in the 1980s. But more importantly than the money that can be earned, There are things that I have learned as a communicator that I want to teach you so that you can teach others, so that we can begin to accelerate the level of individuals who can begin to do basically three things. And I think that they're the master keys to becoming successful in this era, what the late Peter Drucker calls the era of the three C's: accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition. That in order to make it today, number one is transforming your mindset. And I'm challenging anybody that's listening to you right now, if they would go to on YouTube and put in Les Brown speaking in the Georgia Dome, and the title of the speech is "It's Not Over Till You Win," and watch that for 30 days straight.
Wow.
That's that every day, because it'll go from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. Why? Because in order to make it today, we have a lot of stuff coming at us, and our mindset is very important. It's medicine for the mind. The second thing that's crucial is creating three major core competencies. And what I mean by this is that there's no such thing as job security. And so part of what you're going to discover is how you can create three core competencies: the ability to generate income, non-performance income, earning money while you sleep. That is major today. And the reason that you want to earn as much money as you can is because there are things between the ages of 40 and 60 that happen to you or the people that you care about that you really need money to resolve it. 95% of the people who filed bankruptcy last year did so because of medical expenses. My oldest son, Calvin, he's 50 years old. No matter how old your kids get, they're still your kid. So he suffered a stroke. So Calvin now has a tube in his stomach, and he can't swallow his own saliva. Fortunately, he can talk. Fortunately, he can walk unassisted. He has a cane, but he's being fed through a tube in his stomach. The medical care that he gets weekly, the therapy, it costs a minimum of $3,000 a week. If I didn't have the money, my son would be dead. If I didn't have the money, I'll be dead. Not only do I take care of that, but because I'm a 21-year cancer conqueror, my health insurance is $5,000 a month. And
Wow.
that does not include the medication, which is another $2,000. So the reason that wealthy people live longer than poor people is because they have the money.
Yeah.
And so what you will learn, and this is going to blow your mind, I can tell you it is easier to create wealth now more than ever before because we have all the tools we need to make it happen. But because most people in our community are focused on entertainment, they don't even know. They're not even aware. However, one of the things I want to warn you that I wish someone had told me, Jesus said, whosoever will, let him come. What does that mean? Work with the willing.
Ah.
Don't try and convince people to see what you see.
Yeah.
Work with the willing because it will drain your energy and you are wasting your time. I'm telling you what I know.
You taught me that in New York. You said, don't do pigeon work. When you're an eagle, do not do pigeon work.
No, because you can't convince them. You're wasting your time. There's a book I read years ago called The Book Kabbalion, and there's a line in there that says, the lips of the wise are sealed to the ears of the ignorant.
Well, you love blowing my mind. It's all right.
Yes, I do.
I know you're able to speak and give some phenomenal pearls on a few topics, and I wanna have you just speak briefly on three of them. The first one, healing from your past.
You know, Paul said, forgetting those things which are behind, reaching forth unto those things which are before, I press toward the mark of my higher calling. Here's something that we must acknowledge that Paul did not acknowledge. I remember waking up in the middle of the night. There was a movie called Magnolia. I think it was Tom Cruise. And there was a line in that movie that when I heard it, it stayed with me. I couldn't sleep. It was about 2:30 when I saw it. And the line was, we might be through with our past, but our past is not through with us. Think about that. There are things that we have gone through, things that we have experienced that we must have an active program to help to clear our minds out and give us a vision beyond that pain, give us a vision beyond the impact that it has had on us, confront it, and move on. And what I mean by that, I think it was James Baldwin, he said, we will not resolve all that we're faced with, but nothing is going to be resolved until it's faced. And part of what we have to do in healing the past is acknowledge it and develop a strategy to resolve it and ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong, and ask for help and don't stop until you get it. I did not know, and this is something I discovered accidentally. A friend of mine named Karen Bell took me to talk to some kids that were foster kids and who were eventually adopted. And that's my history. I was a foster kid, and then I was adopted with 6 other kids. So on the way from the meeting, I said, those kids need a lot of help. And she said to me, you need some help too. I said, what do you mean? She said, as long as I've known you, one of the things I've noticed, you've moved quite a bit. She said, I want to ask you. And she pulled over. And she said, I just want you to relax, close your eyes, and tell me, what do you say to yourself once you get a home or once you get a new condominium? What do you say to yourself once you turn the key and walk in the door? I said, what do you mean? That I like it. No. She said, get still. Don't become defensive. Close your eyes and tell me, what do you hear in your mind? And I paused for a moment. I did what she told me. And I said, I'm not going to be here long. She said, why do you say that? I said, I don't know. She said, okay, you don't know. But if you did know, what do you think the answer would be? I said, I'm searching for something. I'm trying to find a sense of home. I mean, it was a very emotional moment for me. This is the first time I've ever talked about this publicly. But I said, I've been trying to find a sense of home. And she said, Les, until you confront that, until you get some help with that, that's something unconsciously will always compromise your power. It will cause you to sabotage your personal relationships because you don't feel safe and you're running from something. And that which you're running from is you. Oh, my God. I was like a little kid for the rest of the ride home. And I didn't even know that that was affecting me. And I called a friend of mine who is a very good coach and mentor, Mike Williams, and he and I have spent time together, and he asked me some key questions, and he's been like a therapist to me. And Dr. Tataglia, another friend of mine that I've gone through, to help me work through this because it's called unfinished business, and I did not even know. So that issue that you're raising, it's affecting a lot of people. I know it affected me, and I'm actively going through a process to resolve things that I'm unaware of.
Wow. And you know, there's a high rate of drug abuse, of suicide, of depression among those whose task is to encourage and empower others, because the belief is if you have it to encourage others, then it's because you've got it all together. And that's not always so. And the people who are assigned to encourage the encouragers oftentimes need to step up to make sure and ensure that their heart is taken care of and their spirit is refreshed as well.
Well, you're absolutely right. That's why I believe ask for help, not because you're weak, but because you want to remain strong. And ask for help and don't stop until you get it. Mike Williams has been my mentor and has been my coach. He's been like a father to me. There's only a 2-year difference between the two of us. He wrote the book, The Road to Your Best Stuff. I did not know who Les Brown was. He saw this Les Brown that's now talking to you. I thought I was just a disc jockey, but he saw another Les Brown that I did not see. And I remember when he was telling me that I could speak to corporations and organizations and travel around the world and speak to government officials. And I said, Mike, I don't have a college education. Mike, you know I was labeled educable mentally retarded and failed twice in school. You know I've never worked for a major corporation. And he said to me, and I'll never forget it, he said, Brownie, all of us are born the same way, dumb, naked, and speechless. You can learn. And I invested in myself. I hired him as my coach and strategist and mentor, and he's been like a father to me. I'm a better father. I'm a better man. I'm a better human being. I'm a better servant because of that relationship. Dr. Dennis Kimbrough said something that I believe in strongly. He said that if you're the smartest one in your group, you need to get a new group.
Yes.
You want to surround yourself with people you can learn from, people that will challenge you to grow mentally and emotionally and spiritually, people that as a result of that relationship, you become a better person. I agree with him 100%.
Well, I don't want to tax too much more of your time, so I'll just bring up one other thing.
It's not taxing at all. I love this. You can bring up whatever you want to bring up. I'm ready for you. Bring it, my sister.
So it's not just Les Brown anymore. It's Les Brown and family, the first family of motivation. All of your children are involved as well. So talk about family.
Well, one of the things I think that we should do is we have to build legacy. And part of that process that you have to be an example to me. And I feel like Jacqueline Onassis, she said, if I earn all the money in the world and become extremely famous and my children don't amount to anything, what have I done? And so I've been intentional about being actively engaged in my children's lives. I wanted to build a business. As Scripture says, a good man leaves a legacy for his children and for his children's children. If this were, in fact, my last interview tonight, my son Calvin is the president of the company. Serena, she's a business developer. Ona, she develops a business and she communicates and builds relationships with the speakers' bureaus. And so all of my kids now run my business. And I've already completed the work that I needed to do to follow grandchildren's education. And now I have 3 great-grandsons. I'm working on their college education, which is projected that will be about $200,000 for each one of them. So what I did was I exposed my kids to the message. I took them with me and they traveled with me. And so my children now run the business. They're speakers and authors, and they make a minimum of $5,000 to $12,000 an hour when they speak and train. At this stage, I'm at $40,000 in the United States, $210,000 for an hour presentation outside of the United States. But more importantly, that they and other speakers that I've trained, Kevin Bracey and Ed Blunt and Denise Young and Stacey N.C. Grant, that these other speakers that I've trained that are much younger will go into a future that I will not visit, that I'll be able to leave a legacy. And I think that anybody that's serious about leaving a legacy is not just a conversation that you have. What it is that you have to do, you have to identify the people that are serious based upon your observation and time that you spend with them, because you don't want to invest time with people that are pretenders, people that are not serious. And most people are not serious. That's why Jesus said, whosoever will, let him come. But he also said, he who has ear, let him hear. And everybody is not going to hear you when you're talking about transformation, when you're talking about building a legacy, when you're talking about how we can begin to convert our culture from an entertainment culture to an achievement-driven culture. And that brings me to the third thing that we must do. Not only must we be involved in a process to transform our mindset, and I encourage people to look at that presentation that I'm doing in the Georgia Dome before 80,000 white people. It's very fascinating. And our kids need to see that so they can know that we can do more than run with a football or a helmet on our head or rap. And develop the skill set to create non-performance income in 3 different areas. But it's major for us to create collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships. Collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships. Studies indicate when immigrants come to this country, they have a 4-time greater chance of having their own business or buying a home than the average American. Why? Because they have the collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationship. It's not uncommon for 10 to 15 of them to live in one house until they get enough money saved for one to get out, and then they help someone else, or they send back home to bring somebody else over. Collaborative, achievement-driven, supportive relationships is something that we don't have in our community for the most part. There are some places where that does exist, but for the most part, that does not exist. And I train my kids on that. And so when people see us, they're shocked. They say, whoa, look at Les Brown. And 6 of his kids are out there on stage with him, or they're in a training room with him, or they're with him at corporations. Why? Because I invest in my kids, not only monetarily, but mentally. One of the things I always tell them is not what I leave for you, it's what I leave in you that counts most.
Wow, wow, wow. You answered like 3 or 4 other questions I had.
Yeah, but listen to me, though. Listen to this. Of the 73 speaking engagements I have on my calendar now, is not one with an African-American group. And of all the interviews that I have scheduled, only 2 that's African-American. You and Elroy Smith out of San Francisco. None. Usually around 2 or 3 African-American interviews a year. Why? Because even though what I do it in an entertaining way, but there's very little value. Now, I shouldn't say value. There's very little interest in what I do when it comes to the African-American community. People love me and know me not for what I do in the African-American community. When you say Les Brown in the African-American community, they will say, it wasn't that the guy that was married to Gladys Knight? Mm. But if you say Les Brown in the white community, they will say, he changed my life.
Yeah.
My God. I was going through a tough time, and his voice took me through that time. He changed my life. So that's the difference between an achievement-driven mindset and an entertainment-driven mindset of a community. And the only way that that's going to be changed is through my training and developing people, and through the Les Brown Institute and individuals like yourself. I do believe that as a result of individuals like you, my legacy will be preserved, and that which I envision, thousands of people training and traveling around the world, transforming minds, elevating consciousness, decreasing the level of unconscious self-hatred in our community that caused 95% of black men to kill other black men, increasing our sense of worthiness where we come to believe that life is God's gift to us, and how we live our lives is our gift to God, inspiring people and teaching them how to become effective communicators, because how people live their lives is a result of the story that they believe about themselves, and teaching them how to communicate strategically to distract people from the story that they believe about themselves. And through the execution, through the training that we provide for you, teach you how from the platform to dismantle the limited belief that people have about themselves, and inspire them to become, as Mother Teresa would say, to become a pencil in the hand of God and start writing a new chapter with their lives. Oh, don't you get me started up in here.
I love it. And I love you, Les Brown.
And I love you more, and there's nothing you can do about it.
I wish we could get you back on radio full time, but I know you're traveling all over the world. And
you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it online, because I know the owners of these radio stations. They have absolutely no interest in transforming the collective consciousness of people.
Yeah.
It's just about the money.
Yeah.
I know that. But let me tell you something. Everything we need, we have it.
Yeah.
2007, Time magazine said the computer is the person of the year. Why? Because for the first time in the history of the world, everyday people have access to information. For the first time in the history of the world, everyday people can create and run a multi-billion-dollar business on their cell phone. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chesting rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers died. We've come over a way that with tears has been watered. We've come treading a path through the blood of the slaughtered. Everything we need, we have it. We have it right now. All we have to do is apply what we know. I hear Kathy Hughes' station say knowledge is power. That is not true. Applied knowledge is power. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I love you, Les. We're going to have to do this again sometime.
I look forward to it.
What did I tell you? You were going to love it. That's what I said. And you do, right? Mm-hmm. Love, love, love my experiences with Les Brown. That's just one of so many. He has definitely left his thumbprint on my life, on the way I motivate, on how I tell stories on stage, on how I help crack people up off the stage. Again, some of that behind the scenes stuff. Listen, Les Brown is a phenomenal, phenomenal motivator. He continues to battle cancer and conquer it by laughing, by being positive, by utilizing every tactic and strategy that he teaches others to change their lives. And one time we were doing a radiothon for St. Jude, and Jacqueline Carr was at the radio station, and Les Brown had begun using her song, You Will Win, in his presentations. He had just found out that his cancer had returned and spread to his spine. I told her all about it, and she gave a nice little video message to even inspire and encourage him even more. I texted that right over to him, and he laughed and smiled and was so grateful, because it's time for people like us who benefited from all the words and wisdom that he gave that helped shape and change our lives to give back to him. So I was so honored to be able to do that. And our prayers continue to go out to him for his complete healing and wholeness. But he's still traveling the world. I'm telling you, still traveling the world. And he's part of a generation of giants in the motivational speaking industry that pretty much laid the groundwork for a lot of what people like me stand on today. So I'm so grateful to have every experience with him that I have had and prayerfully will continue to have. And I'm so grateful I can share them with you. I'm Denise Hill, and I would love it if we can continue this conversation and more on social media. Hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I am at The Denise Hill. And of course, I'm right back here real soon with another experience. The Denise Hill Experience. Stay blessed.
Thank you for joining the Denise Hill Experience. For more, connect with Denise at denisehill.com and on all social media at The Denise Hill. See you next time for more great stories and interviews inside the Denise Hill Experience.